rain in Gotham didn't fall. It clung. It slicked the bricks, sat in the lungs, turned every certainty into something damp and doubtful. Blood Alley was a throat the city cleared every night. Steam rising from carts, grease coughing up out of gutters, neon signs flickering like bad memories. I wasn't a regular at Chen's, but the stew meant warmth, and warmth in Gotham can feel like forgiveness. The sign read "Family Recipe since 1983, and I'd like to believe in families that last. The bell tinkled. Mr. Chen was a silhouette behind the rising lid of a stockpot. Madame Lin moved like smoke between tables, light on her feet, heavy in the eyes. Folks inside, cab drivers, late-shift nurses, men with wives who didn't expect them, bent over bowls as if praying into them. The aroma cut through me, sweet at first, then something metallic, a whisper of hot coin on the tongue. I'd eaten goat since I was a kid in the Narrows. Goat shouldn't melt like that. It shouldn't carry a softness that made the teeth go shy. I set the spoon down, and in the dull spoon's oval, I saw my face and a city that never blinked. "Too hot?" Madame Lin asked. "Maybe too good," I said. On the sidewalk, rain stitched the street back together. In the distance, an ambulance cried, then laughed, then went silent. My phone vibrated. 3 new missing person reports, men without papers, women without friends, people Gotham forgot before it learned their names. There are flavors you swallow and flavors that stay. That night, the stew stayed, sleeping in my mouth like a question that had outstayed its welcome. The board in Homicide was a collage of unfinished thoughts, Polaroids, maps, a river of red string pretending to be logic. Sergeant Lila Cortez slid coffee across my desk and nodded at the stack. "Lost and found?" she said. "Lost and lost," I answered. 3 in 2 weeks within 5 blocks of Blood Alley. Night shift ghosts. She leaned on the edge, reading. "You'll say it out loud?" "I'll say it in my head," I said. Words are spells in Gotham. Once you name a thing, it starts to exist twice. We canvassed. Doorways that knew our boots. Bodega cameras that forgot to record. The apartment above the pawn shop where a woman said she smelled broth at 3 a.m. and wished she hadn't. We didn't have probable cause for anything, so we did what Gotham lawmen do. We watched. At 2:24 a.m., a box truck slid up to Chen's back door. No logo. Rust like a skin condition. A man with shoulders like a pit bull got out, knocked twice, waited 3 beats. The door opened. The pot in the kitchen hissed as if relieved. "Know him?" Lila whispered. "Hound Bristow," I said. "Rents cold space by the docks, moves meat to kitchens that can't afford invoices."
Captain Hurley didn't like cases that could get him on television. He liked cases that died quietly under heavy folders. When I laid out the pattern, the missing, the alley, the truck, his jaw worked. Then he did something I didn't expect. "Take Rao," he said. "If there's a thread to pull, he'll pull it gentle." Dr. Ishan Rao lived for the unforgiving truth of tissue. He sniffed at the air when we knocked on Chen's back door under a food safety pretext. "Boiled long," he murmured, "to erase memory." Madame Lin welcomed us with a smile that had splinters in it. "Gentlemen, city inspectors come at lunchtime, cops come at dawn. You arrive in the blessed middle. Breakfast." She poured tea. Chen, spectral, stirred. "We've had missing persons," I said. "Neighbors say trucks come late." "Gotham never sleeps," she said. "We feed it." "Who's the driver?" Lila added, arriving at the back like a surprise. "Different men," Lynn said. "Goat is not grown on rooftops." Rao's eyes followed a drip running down a wall tile. The kitchen was clean the way cemeteries are clean, not a thing out of place, and no place for a thing to be. When we left, Lynn walked us to the threshold. Rain daggered the alley. "Detective," she said softly, "are you a religious man?" "I believe in evidence," I said. She nodded, as if that were the saddest faith she'd ever heard.
Evidence always arrives late, she said. The bell chimed. The door closed. The stew breathed on behind it. The warrant came on a Sunday. Judges get generous when the city threatens to trend. We went in quiet. The kitchen gave itself up politely. In the freezer, we found brown paper parcels, weighed to the ounce, labeled in tidy Chinese script. We found goat carcasses, sure, but a bin tucked behind them held bones that weren't goat, slender and wrong at the ends, porous like whispered things. Some of this is human, Rao said, voice locating a flat line between outrage and ceremony. It's a stew shop, Lila whispered, as if the room needed reminding. We sealed, logged, rolled. Mr. Chen wept soundlessly. Madam Lin watched with a face that gave away nothing, like someone who had been expecting a letter for a decade and finally received it blank. At the precinct, Rao laid samples on glass like relics. Mix of species, he said later. Some goat, some pig, and these are human, but we need to confirm. Cooked long, acid-treated. If I were a cynic, I'd say someone's laundering biology. Hurley looked old under the fluorescent halo. You saying they served people? He asked. I'm saying someone wanted us to think so, Rao said. The chemistry's theatrical. It's performative. Performative cannibalism? Lila said. That a charge in this city? Make one, Hurley said. And for a second the room felt small enough to be honest. News chewed the story and fed it back, half digested. Gotham goat shop serves human remains, police say. Camera vans sealed Blood Alley like a lid. Protesters came to shout. Opportunists came to sell umbrellas to protesters. A priest came to speak solemn words about the sanctity of hunger. Arthur Pike, scavenger journalist with a cheap tie and an expensive appetite for rot, found me smoking under the scaffold. Detective, he said, tell me the human part is true. I've already got the headline font. The part that's true is the investigation, I said. Come on, he said, low and friendly. They fed the city. The city's lost. That's poetry. The public will gorge. In the holding cell, Lynn sat upright, hands folded, eyes not blinking enough. You think I did this? She said, when I came to ask a question I hadn't formed. I think someone did, I said, and I think you know who. She tilted her head. Do you know what it means to owe? She asked. I owed the city. It collected. But it wasn't me who wrote the bill. She looked past me, through me. Check the cold houses by the river. Men like to keep things that don't belong to them in places colder than their hearts. Hound? I said. She almost smiled. All men with knives think they are butchers. Hound Bristow ran a cold labyrinth near Pier 19. We went with a warrant, a camera, and borrowed faith. He opened the door shirtless in December, as if steam were his blood. Detectives, he said. To what do I owe the violation of my Fourth Amendment? We're here for invoices, Lila said, moving first. And contents. Inside, steel tables, hose on hooks, drains dreaming of red rivers. The freezers hummed like a choir. Rao, gloved, lifted lids and frowned at inventories that didn't match inventories. Goat heads without goat bodies, bags of bones labeled stock enhancers, boxes of knuckles labeled dog food. Men don't know what they're buying, Hound said amiably. They buy stories, family recipe, artisanal. I sell them the punctuation. You sell them bones, I said. He waggled a finger. I sell kitchens, the illusion of old-world kitchen. They simmer. I supply the antique. It's a romance business. What about these? Rao held up a vacuum bag. These are human metacarpals. Hound blinked like a man hearing winter for the first time. No accounting for what the dead give us, he said. You want the truth? Talk to the medical waste brokers. They talk like saints and drive like sinners. We took records, photos, regrets. On the way out, Mina, the server from Chen's, stepped from the shadow of a North Render house was a shell the city had forgotten to demolish. Broken stained glass windows from when it had been a church, smoke-black rafters, vats like baptismal fonts for sinners who ran out of skin. Midnight in Gotham is a time and a temperature. The Render house held both like breath. We went light. Me, Lila, two uniforms who owed me boring favors. We moved past metal that remembered screams. A generator coughed alive somewhere and the vats stirred. Slow. The smell wasn't death. Death is cleaner. It was after death. The long arithmetic that follows. Mina stepped into the light, palms up. I shouldn't have called you, she said, but I couldn't let it end on Lynn. What is this place now? Lila asked. A business, Mina said. They take what hospitals can't record, what funeral homes won't admit, what morgues don't have space for. They render it down. Bones for fertilizer. Fats for every product you don't want to think about. And for kitchens that want to look traditional, bags of heritage bone for their stock. Who's they? I asked. The word felt cowardly. The broker, she said. They call him Auburn Mark. He speaks like a priest with a calendar full of golf. A shadow separated from shadows. The man wore a coat meant for parliaments, not prisons. Detective Marlowe, he said warmly, as if I'd RSVP'd. We meet in the steam. Poetic. This city still appreciates staging. You're selling human remains to restaurants, I said. I'm selling inevitability, he said. The city discards. I repurpose. Everyone calls it evil because it smells like work. But ask your budget committee how much cold storage costs. He gestured to the vats. Besides, cooks have used bone since fire learned its name. It's only the naming that disturbs you. You framed Lynn, Lila said, small voice sharpened. You sent just enough trace to her freezer. He sighed. Sincerely, I think. She borrowed. She didn't return. Debts migrate. I had to demonstrate the contours of responsibility. Hound appeared behind him like a bad idea. Cops brought friends, he said. I hate guests with paperwork. Things happen fast when they've been happening for a long time. The generator hiccuped. The lights went devotional. Footsteps multiplied over metal. I drew. Lila drew. The uniforms pretended they were still rookies learning the alphabet of danger. The shot that cracked the nave didn't come from us. Mina screamed, a real sound, and dove behind a drum. Stop! I shouted, as if Gotham had ever obeyed. It stopped anyway. Auburn Mark raised two hands. You can take the theater, he said gently, but you'll leave the economy. Rao's lab was a chapel at 3 a.m., fluorescent, penitential, the kind of place where you confess to the microscope because it doesn't judge your stubble. He held up two slides. You were both right and wrong, he said. Lynn's kitchen had human bone residue. Trace, denatured, added late. Some goat bones were from animals that never saw a field. Factory goats, if such an insult exists. But the human traces were curated. That word is ugly, but it fits. Curated, I repeated. Like a museum of what we don't want to know. He nodded. Auburn Mark's operation isn't an urban legend. It's logistics with a conscience amputation. He funnels unclaimed remains through shell vendors, restaurants that want to fake tradition by heritage bone. Most throw it away when the PR goes bad. A few don't. Lynn? Lila asked. She borrowed, Rao said. From Hound. There's a pattern in the invoices. When she couldn't pay, someone made an example. They salted her freezer, so when you looked, you'd find the story you were hungry for. I closed my notebook. It felt like closing a patient's eyes. What now? Lila asked. Now we pretend the city can metabolize the truth, I said. We charge who we can charge and watch who we can't, hire better lawyers. Lynn? She asked again, softer. We prove sabotage on the forensics, Rao said. If the judge can be taught chemistry. Outside, dawn was a rumor, and rain took a smoke break. Gotham looked like it might forgive us for an hour. It didn't. Arraignments in Gotham are theatre without applause, a judge whose eyes never quite meet yours, a row of lawyers blinking in expensive unison, and a gallery of faces that came to watch a body float. Madame Lynn stood between two public defenders in a wool coat that had outlived 3 winters and a marriage. The press haloed the room. Pike had a notebook open and a headline already written in his bones. The clerk read the charges. Words bounced off walls. Fraud, health code violations, suspicion of trafficking human remains. The last one hung in the air like a rumor that found teeth. Bail was set. Not mercy, not cruelty, just arithmetic with a face on it. When the gavel fell, the room exhaled the way a patient does when the anesthetic wins. Outside, rain slicked the courthouse steps. Pike slid beside me like a guilty idea. Is she a monster or a monument? He asked. Depends who's paying the sculptor, I said. Counsel sniffing around Renderhouse contracts, he said low. If I could get eyes on the procurement tree. You'll cut your hands, I told him. It's all thorns. Back in the squad room, Hurley's office light made everything else dim. He motioned with 2 fingers, the invitation and the warning. City Hall wants this contained, he said. They like villains you can put in a box. A broker in a tailored coat with 6 foundations and a golf handicap isn't a box. Lynn can be. You want the wrong ending, I said. I want an ending, he said. And I want you to still have a badge at it. Cortez and I took the rest of the day to walk kitchens. Gotham's chefs can lie like poets. They told us about terroir and tradition, about marrow that remembers the grandmother's stove, about stocks that took 3 days because time, like salt, makes its own case. In the quiet after, a sous chef in a basement place showed us a stack of invoices stamped Auburn Holdings. Came with the equipment lease, he said, embarrassment oiling his voice. Came with the idea of being authentic. We just signed. That night, Hound Bristow called from the jail phone with a voice that had traded its teeth for a deal. You on the ledger, he said. Warehouse 6 by the canal. Mark keeps the ugly math there. Why help? I asked. Because men like me only live 2 ways, he said. Mean or useful. I'm tired. We wrote the warrant. We didn't sleep.
Warehouse 6 forgot its name a decade ago. Sheet metal sighed in the wind, rust made little orange continents where paint used to be. We went in with uniforms that owed favors and flashlights that made the dust confess. Slow-mo, careful. Cortez taking photos, me lifting lids. Rao, summoned at an indecent hour, gloving and bagging with the concentration of a surgeon and the sorrow of a priest. Inside an office that had known too many coffee cups, we found the paperwork's spine. Shell companies armoring other shells. A procurement ladder that climbed into clouds where rich men golfed. Receipts from city hospitals reading unclaimed in the kind of typeface that knows it won't be questioned. On a portable drive, a directory of contracts yawned open. Waste remediation, rendering services, nutraceutical inputs. Every euphemism money invented to sleep at night. A recurring countersignature, Hargrave Consolidated, appeared like a watermark. Rao tapped a crate marked Heritage Bone with a latex finger. Denatured, acid-treated, low-level phosphate residues. This isn't cooking. This is cleansing. Someone's curating the trace. We logged everything.
Hands numb, eyes burning. By noon, council chambers turned into a sudden church. Mark stood at a microphone beside a lawyer with expensive hair and said words like compassionate remediation, urban stewardship, and honoring the unclaimed. He made trash sound like valor. The gallery hummed with the thrill of a lie sung well. Pike got his story by evening, the city that eats itself. He called me for a quote I didn't give. The headline didn't need me. Lynn made bail, stepped onto Blood Alley as if into a memory that might not recognize her. The shop wore a blue paper seal across its mouth. She touched it like a goodbye.
Render house again, but the big one this time. North of the canal, east of Hope. We didn't have the paper. We had the need. The building breathed through vents that wheezed heat like confession. We came in through a side door the security company pretended not to know about. Cortez carried the small recorder the department bought, with cash from a forfeiture nobody remembered. I carried a camera that didn't belong to me and a pocket full of apologies I would never say. The vats muttered. The generator yawned. Pipes gave their secret language. And then, from a catwalk that once belonged to a millwright's ghost, a voice unspooled. Aubenmark didn't know we were listening or pretended not to. He spoke as if dictating to a congregation that had forgotten the lyrics. "Cities are bodies," he said, tone even, as if lecturing a class that paid well. "They devour, they excrete. Moral people hate both facts and hire me so they can hate from a distance. We take the unclaimed, the unwanted, the unnamed, and we keep the living from smelling the truth. We are nuns of the new order, washing what cannot be washed, promising a heaven of unscented days." Cortez pressed a hand to the recorder as if to steady it. I took pictures of labels, pipes, a schedule pinned to a corkboard that said, "Auction Friday," and listed lots like a butcher shop would list miracles. We were 5 steps from clean exit when a flashlight drew a line on the wall around us. Security. The man had a belly of boredom and a mouth for yelling. I showed him a badge and a tone that had kept me alive. "We're following up on a leak," I said. "Health department. You don't want press." Press is the word that gets doors to stand still. He paused long enough for us to become ghosts. Back at the car, Rain applauded the windshield for not breaking. "You're going to lose the badge," Cortez said, not unkind. "Probably," I said. "But I'll know where it went. The men who hurt Mina didn't wear uniforms. They wore the city, grey hoodies, anonymous shoes, a smell of borrowed cologne, and rented courage. They came at her outside a laundromat where neon lights made the world look edible. They told her to stop believing in charity. They taught her what it sounds like when a warning counts to 3. She fought like a person who has decided that pain can be spent like money. A passing bus driver, a woman who had 3 sons and a sense of fairness, laid on the horn long enough to pull 2 faces up. The men retreated into Rain the way rats choose their holes. I found Mina in an ER cubicle under a plastic curtain that wanted to be privacy. Her eye was violet with the promise of yellow to come. Her hands shook. "I shouldn't have called you," she said. "You should have called me sooner," I answered. We get good at the wrong sentences. Cortez arranged protective housing in a half-dirty motel where the manager liked the police because the police liked his dog. I promised the kind of safety that exists only when you build it day by day like a scaffold you're already standing on. When I drove back to the precinct, the city made that sound it makes at 3 in the morning, when even the sirens take a breath. I hated Aubenmark with a clean hate, the kind that polishes you or hollows you out. I wasn't sure which it was doing to me. Pike is a scavenger, but sometimes scavengers clean a beach. He published a map. Arrows from hospitals to shell companies to render houses to restaurants that wanted the taste of time in a bag. He blurred the smallest names and printed the largest with the dignity of a font that knows it is starting a fight. He didn't print Mina. For that I owed him. the kind of owing that doesn't bleed. The council held another hearing. Hargrave appeared in a suit that must have cost as much as decency. He talked about legacy obligations and end-of-life logistics. He used compassion the way a Stein uses the word patina. Cortez and I stood in the back like a pair of uncomfortable facts. When our turn came, Rao spoke quietly into the microphone and turned science into a kind of prayer. Phosphonate signatures, denaturing sequences, the math of heat and marrow. In Lynn's kitchen, he concluded. Human trace was added after the fact. It reads like installation, not preparation. What about public safety? A councilman asked, looking for a rope. Rao didn't flinch. Public safety begins at procurement, he said. You outsourced your conscience and now you're surprised it kept the receipts. The hearing adjourned with noises resembling integrity. Mark left through a side door. Hargrave's smile didn't move when he walked. Men like that think walking is what other men do. The seal came off Chen's shop on a Tuesday morning when nobody expects miracles. Lynn reopened with a sign that said, Congee today, free for anyone who misses someone. People lined up who didn't know they were hungry. The pot steamed a clean spiral that smelled like rice and salt and the small mercies of heat. I took a bowl at the counter and sat near the window where Rain wrote on the glass in cursive that nobody teaches anymore. Lynn ladled without looking up, and then did. Her eyes had the geography of someone who had been somewhere most maps don't include. You were the one who kept coming back, she said. I didn't know how to stop, I said. Good, she said. Stop is what made it all rot. She didn't talk about the months to come, administrative hearings, fines for invoices she couldn't afford, the long penance of paperwork. She just refilled bowls and said the names of the griefs people handed her, with the carefulness of a reader learning a new language. The congee was plain in the way truth is plain when it decides fancy can sit this one out. It warmed the teeth. It did not try to be anyone else. For a long time I had feared the taste that might return. What returned was simpler. Enough. Later I sat with Mina on the motel steps. The dog came to lean its head on her knee the way good dogs pledge allegiance. She looked better in the brutal way healing looks when it starts. Red, then less red, then something else. What now? She asked. Now we keep walking, I said, and we look back enough to make sure the path is still there. Justice in Gotham doesn't arrive. It drifts in like fog, and you call it justice because you can see the streetlight again. Hound took a deal that taught him the names of the men he had been working for. He gave us 3 warehouses and a bank account number that coughed up 5 shell companies like a magician coughing up doves. He took a sentence that would keep him off the water for a while and teach him that laundry has more than one meaning. Auburn Mark didn't see a cell. He saw subcommittee rooms, the sour face of a donor who goes cold, a country club membership that suddenly required renovation at precisely the weeks he wanted in. The render houses were restructured under new ethical management, which is a phrase Gotham uses when it has run out of apologies and needs new letterhead. The auction scheduled for Friday did not happen. The lots were redistributed to places that promised not to burn ghosts into gasoline. Hargrave lost a vote on a board nobody had ever elected him to. He did not lose his shoes, or his view, or his ability to smile in elevators. Men like that are made of weatherproof material. But he learned something about wind. Sometimes that's all you get. Lynn paid fines that felt like theft under a different name. The city certified her kitchen. She kept the free congee sign up longer than any accountant would recommend. People brought flowers, then stories, then silence that tasted like respect. Cortez received a commendation written in a font that doesn't know what it's for. Rao spoke at a medical school about the ethics of trace, which is to say he taught clever children not to be too clever. Hurley retired the year after, with a shrug that said the city had finally made him tired in the corners. Pike won an award he pretended not to care about. He kept a copy of the paper on his wall anyway, in a frame that cost less than the page. Mina left Gotham on a morning that smelled like coins and damp newsprint. At the station, she pressed a key into my hand. "For the back door," she said, "in case you need rice after midnight." "I always need rice after midnight," I said. "Then you'll know where to find it," she answered, and stepped onto a train whose windows reflected a city that always wanted to be better tomorrow. That night, I walked to Blood Alley without meaning to. Rain stitched the street shut and then opened it again. Lynn was closing. She waved me in, fed me a bowl that tasted like a promise a human could keep. We didn't speak about the case. We spoke about salt and timing and how the pot remembers if you treat it like something alive. On my way out, I paused under the awning, listening to the steady, unshowy sound of a simmer. Evidence always arrives late, I'd told her once. It still does. But sometimes it also stays. Quiet as steam off a bowl, warm as a hand over a flame, plain as rice and water making comfort together because someone decided not to lie. In Gotham, the flavors that remain aren't always the ones you fear. Sometimes they're the ones you choose. The rain never stopped. But for a minute, it tasted clean.